Y'all so beautiful and black out here today, I'm moved to tears, man. First of all, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the NAACP for having me out here. These are conversations that I feel like, especially talking to the youth, are necessary and that sometimes I don't get to have as much, so I am thankful to Kanye West that dressing him down let me talk to y'all today here. You know what I'm saying? When we're talking to young people specifically, it's very important to me, and it's a very specifically important ministry because you guys are the warriors that are going to flip the pages in society to the books that we all want to read, okay? You need to be able to go forth into this world with weapons that are ready to use against everything that might come at you. And it's up to us, shall I say, as the people who are getting you guys ready to make sure that, one, you have these weapons, and that, two, if you already have them, that they stay sharp. So today we have a fantastic panel of people who are doing this work on the ground. It's very important to remember because there are people that are on television like myself. There are people that are luminaries in all different types of fields of pop culture. But then you have people that are every single day doing what they can to make change in your lives. It's very important that you hear from them. And that's why I'm very, very excited to be a part of the panel that we are going to give to you guys today. So, without having me go on too much, because I could talk all day about this stuff with you guys, let's get into introducing the panel and get down to this discussion. Now, first up, we have, excuse me, let me get to this. Youth engagement and skills head, Jamira Burley. Jamira Burley, for over a decade, has fought to improve the lives of others, implementing anti-violence programs throughout the Philadelphia area. She has worked with entities like Amnesty International and the United Nations. For her work, she has been awarded by the White House as a gun violence prevention champion of change and has been recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree in law and policy. Get up for Jamira real quick, you guys. Justice League New York national organizer, you guys just heard from him, that awesome spoken word piece. My son, the General, an independent hip hop artist and a criminal justice reform activist from the Bronx, New York. As a young rapper, signed to a record label, however, shortly after that, was wrongly misidentified. When we talk about reforming the criminal justice system, very important, as a culprit of an armed robbery and ended up in jail for 7 years. But now he uses his platform against past struggles to fight for justice, breaking down the barriers that society has set on him, and most of us alike. Give it up for my son, you guys. The co-director of Dream Defenders, Philip Agnew, a native of Chicago, Illinois, an advocate of social justice motivated by the murder of Martin Lee Anderson and inspired by his role model, Bob Marley. That's an insanely good role model. Philip found his voice attending Florida A&M and has since organized students at FAMU, Florida State, and Tallahassee Community College in the creation of the Student Coalition for Justice. In 2012, he co-founded Dream Defenders and now serves as the organization's co-director. Give it up for Philip, you guys. Author, activist, and founder of Equality for Her, Blair Imani. Blair is an author and activist, like I said, living at the intersection of Black, queer, and Muslim identity. She is the author of Modern Her Story, stories of women and non-binary people rewriting history. She is the founder and executive director of Equality for Her, a nonprofit educational platform for women and non-binary people. Give it up for Blair, everybody. And we'd also like to welcome to the stage our newest advocate for justice. Sometimes we don't realize how quickly our rights can be violated until we are in the crosshairs of that. This happened to this young lady as she was requesting utensils at the Waffle House in Alabama. You guys all heard the story. An entire movement has responded to her call for justice, and the NAACP, and really we all should have her back. She's not a victim, she's a survivor. Please welcome Shakisha Clemens. I'm gonna go over here and sit down real quick. Y'all hear me? Listen, they gave me the choice of whether or not I was gonna have the handheld mic or this. but I always wanted to get my Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation on with this right here, so, you know what I'm saying? If I decide to dance, y'all gonna have to get with me. How y'all doing today?
Good.
Everybody good? Everybody mic working? So,
1 2 1 2.
let's just jump right into it, and I'll just throw this out for you guys. We're fighting a lot of violence today in our communities, okay? We're fighting against a lot of things. I'll ask all of you guys, because sometimes this question gets asked, and it's a very important one. What should we be fighting for? What should be the things that we are proactively fighting for rather than the reactionary things that we fight against?
I guess I can go first. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm truly honored to be in this space, particularly amongst all these amazing young leaders who are going to transform the world as we know it. And when I think about what are we fighting for, we're fighting for Black liberation. Black people are at the very margins of our society and have been oppressed for decades. And for me, every time I wake up, the work that I do looks like how do we continue to make sure that Black people are free, have access to resources, and that our justice system treat them just and fair. So I think for me, it's Black liberation.
I think for me, it's equity. You know, I think we keep saying we want equality and equal justice. I think it's pretty much impossible to be equal until we get equity, because no matter if you put us all on the same plane right now, we've been oppressed and dealt with marginalization for so long that we're not going to equal out. So right now, what we have to do is figure out how is it that we make Black people come together, build our financial equity, build our financial empires together, and then from there we build a social structure that demands that we get justice, because we can't keep asking for justice if we don't come from a position of power. So I think once we start getting equity and financially empowering ourselves, then the justice that we seek will automatically come.
Word.
Well, you know, before I start, I want to give a special shout out to Nissan. On one hand, Nissan is here talking about all the great things that they do. And on the other hand, they make sure that there are no unions at any of their factories in Mississippi or in Tennessee. So when we're talking about what we're fighting for, we have to be talking about what we're fighting for and with who. And so when you have a company like Nissan who will come and throw a few dollars to a convention, but then make sure that people who are working in their factories cannot unionize, don't let them tranquilize y'all with a few dollars in a convention center. So I wanna start off. You know, I just would like to start off my comments talking about great car companies that give people pennies everywhere they go. And the Altima not even that great. All right, so also, when it comes to what should we be fighting for, I think we should be fighting for the destruction of the capitalist system. That is the system that has created the world that we live under. It is the system that told us that women don't mean anything, that Black people don't mean anything, that immigrants don't mean anything. It's the system that companies like Nissan and many of the sponsors of this convention have been able to flourish under. And so when we talk about freedom, we're not just talking about the opposite of slavery. Freedom is not the unchained wrist. It is not the unbowed back. It is us being able to create the lives, as my son said, to create and imagine the lives that we want, and then to have the power to make manifest the dreams that we have. And so that's what we should be fighting towards. It is not just the opposite of what we face today. It is the envisioning of a new thing and then the power to create the new thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, it's about making sure that everybody, especially Black people, because we've been denied this for so long, but for us to be healthy, happy, full, whole, and complete people, because every part of the society that America has created has been dedicated to ripping us apart, whether it's ripping our families apart, ripping ourselves apart. And I'm also going to call out a sponsor, Gilead, which is constantly raising the prices of HIV/AIDS prevention medication. Tomorrow is the first ever HIV/AIDS prevention day, because we can't just talk about HIV in the sense of it exists only in the LGBTQ community, when Black women have the highest amount of new cases of HIV/AIDS, and when things like PrEP are so taboo, when we can literally be preventing the spread of HIV medication. And so I want to call on Gilead to release the patent on HIV/AIDS medication, because we can't be free when we have a price on healthcare, and when we think of healthcare as something that is there to make rich people richer. So I think we can't just be reactionary. We have to be preventative in terms of educating our young people about sexual health and sexual education, about consent, about what freedom means when you can own your own body and when your body belongs to no one but yourself. And so I think that's a future that I want to fight for Black women, because for too long our bodies have belonged to the United States government, and we have to continue to remind them, even as Roe comes under fire, Roe versus Wade, that we own our bodies, that our bodies belong to us, and we will continue to make decisions about them, and we can't look at the healthcare system as a money factory.
First, I want to start off by saying thank you guys for having me here. It's such an honor to me. What I would be fighting for is respect, because respect is due to all of us. We have yet to get respect. Black people don't get respect at all. So to me, I feel like the fight that I'm fighting against the Waffle House, I have yet to get respect or an apology from it. So I'm demanding respect for not only me, but for other Shakisha Clemens or other Trayvon Martins or other Sandra Bland's that hasn't had their respect out. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to piggyback off something we just discussed, because that got pretty spicy. That's the way I like it. Okay.
They gave us free reign. So.
Right. We all had different ideas of what we should be fighting for, and I think that there were a lot of big concepts that were thrown out there. I want to ask you guys, because you're experts in all of your disciplines and your life experiences. What type of system building specifically has to go on in order to achieve those lofty goals? Like Blair, you wanted to like what specifically on the ground floor can these young people do to start building those blocks?
I think education is very important, because for me and for a lot of the Black students in my classes at Louisiana State University, we were learning history in a vacuum. We were learning about the conditions that Black people exist in, survive through today, without any understanding of how we got here. And so what we end up having is our this mental jump that we were meant to be in these conditions, when really, like I said, these institutions were built to rip us apart and prevent us from excelling. Things like you needing a hair license to do hair out of your own home. You need infinitely more training hours and licenses to get versus just getting a gun, when a gun can end somebody's life, and we're only just trying to make your hair look slayed when you're getting a hair license. But that being targeted directly at Black women, that's not going to white women. Miss Becky doesn't have a hair salon out of her home. Miss Jamila does, okay? And so I think looking at the way systems have been created and then defeating those, and I know Jamira, you're working on restoring the vote to folks in Florida, and so it's really dismantling these systems and redistributing wealth. And really, I remember when I was like 8 years old, my grandfather and my uncle would talk to each other about reparations, and I'd be like, what does that mean? Slavery was so long ago, but now I'm in a space where I really think that reparations, in terms of creating systems that accommodate Black people and address our needs and provide equity in terms of our healthcare and education systems and our jobs, that's what we need to be working for. We have to rebuild, and we have to understand that we've never been whole in this country. We have to create systems where we can be.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that, and I think one thing many people on the panel would probably say is that we can't talk about what should be built until we talk about what should be burned down. Particularly our criminal justice system, particularly our police force. We know from the very conception of the idea of the police, it was to find slaves, to bring them back to their master, and nothing has really changed since then. Only we have continued to get more Black bodies who have been criminalized, brutalized, and have been murdered in our streets. So I think while there's a number of systems that need to be developed, everything from rebranding how we educate our young people to how we provide resources to our communities, we also need to think about the systems that are very toxic and that are harming and killing our people at the same time.
For me, this is just a real distinct reality. We have a structure, a government, that just was never fit for us from the beginning. In any structure, in any place throughout history, when a structure of government does not fit the culture of the people, it's dismantled. When you look at capitalism, it was built on the backs of Black people. It was built because we were the people who did the work. We were the people they killed. We were the people that they owned. So we always are going to be poverty. We're always going to be the property. So until we dismantle this whole structure and then start with our children, start retraining the thought process. Our children, we don't have unity no more. Everybody is thinking about self. I got this, and I got $1 million, and I'm trying to get this. Until we start getting back to unity and put the neighbor back in neighborhood, we're not going to get any of these things that we're talking about. So we got to retrain the mindset of our kids. They got to value each other. They got to value life. They got to stop putting values in things. And that's what capitalism has done. And it's a whole structure that we fall into, because if you look at wealth in this country, the people who acquire wealth, they don't even have things. They just have a bunch of wealth, and they spend the least amount of money. And the people like us who have nothing, we continue to spend our money to try to catch up to somebody, and it's a backwards mentality. So we have to retrain ourselves first.
Yeah, really quick to piggyback off of this point, organization is the vehicle for change. And so for anybody, there's a number of people who on social media for the last few years, the D-Rays of the world, et cetera, have told y'all to just, as an individual, I could do something and I could change the whole world. Organization, being an activist is an incredible thing. You're able to act and to do something. But being an organizer, which is the reason that you all are here, a part of a 109-year organization who is tasked with not just acting, but also listening to what people are saying. The building of organization is the vehicle for change. And so in addition to what has already been said, I want to just highlight the importance of you all being a part of an organization, being intentional about ensuring that you all are bringing in membership every day and striking at the root causes of issues. One thing that 45 and 44 and 43 and 42 had a great skill of doing is making sure that we're fighting the symptoms of the problem and not fighting the root cause of the problem. Every other day they got us running around and fighting something that is a symptom of the problem and not diagnosing the true issue that we're really trying to get to. And so I would say the building of organization is very important. And then when you all are doing your work, what Tiffany has created for you all at this conference is giving you all the tool in your tool belt, right? To ensure that you all can strike at the root causes of the issues. In Florida, what we're working on is the restoration of rights for 1.7 million people who have lost their right to vote because they have a felony conviction. We're in a state where the governor won by 70,000 votes. And we have the opportunity in November to return the right to vote to 1.7 million people. And so what we're doing is talking about power. We must contend for power. Not just rhetorical stuff, not just a feeling, not just seeing somebody that looked like you in a suit standing next to somebody and doing the same thing to you, but we want power to be able to determine what our tomorrows look like. So you must build organization, you must strike at the root of the issue, and you must always be contending for power. Don't take these little crumbs that people are giving you. We have the ability to move millions of people in our respective localities and states, and we have to be moving them towards a goal that strikes at the core of the issue.
Amazing. So, yeah, give it up. Come on. Y'all getting this good work. Now, we have a lot of students in attendance right now. What do you guys feel like the role of a student in the year 2018, 2019 in the national fight for Black lives is going to be? How do these young people mobilize? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I breeze past you, sister?
No, I'll put her on the spot a little bit because her story is so inspiring to me. You know, you've been through so much, and I want you to speak to it. But I think that what Tamika Mallory was saying earlier when we were having lunch was that people will wait until something is condoned by a celebrity or by an institution. I see people like trample others when a senator decides that we're going to march for something. But if, not a lone activist, but if a group of folks try to use their platform to mobilize for something, people are like, I don't know. Or when I was trying to organize a protest for at the Los Angeles the ICE office over there, and I was trying to mobilize folks, we had a great turnout, but there were other people in the comments who were like, well, who planned this? Who approved this? What about in my city? And people had forgotten the fact that you make it happen. We are the activists that make it happen. We can't wait for other people to condone it or for folks to sign on or for your credentials to manifest. We're all experts in the black struggle because we're all living the black struggle. So we can't wait for somebody else to say, I'm going to give you a paper from a white institution to prove that you know about your blackness. We have to decide that we can talk about it ourselves, and we don't need somebody to save us. We can save ourselves, and we can build for ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, sweetie.
No, I have my stuff.
Oh, okay.
For me, I think the students should be leading. I think at this point, the youth are our leaders. They know exactly what's going on in this community. They know what's going on. They are leading us into the next generation. I follow the youth because they are fearless. That you can't trick them. They're not amused. They don't care about who you are. They're going to tell the truth, and they're honest. So I want to follow the young people that are in here today. Next year, I want to see somebody saying, I don't care if I'm 19, I'm running for office. Right. Because I feel like I know what's going on in my community. I want us to take those type of bold statements. If you look throughout history, our civil rights leaders were young. They were leading.
Without a doubt.
They were leading nations at 19 and 20 years old. So I want us to get back to that. I remember always being a young kid, understanding what was going on. And I felt like a lot of the older people never wanted to identify or believe that we knew what was going on. And I always said to myself, as I get older, I want to take notes from the youth because I know that they know what's going on because I was once one of them. So I think right now we should start empowering our youth. A lot of these, or all of our organizations should be empowered by our youth because they are going to lead us to where we need to go.
Yeah, interesting about that is, to me, I just look back at where I was 22, 23 years old when I was there. The kids that I know, the youth that I know are simply more evolved. They have more information. They have a wider lens on the world. What, to your point, has to be done specifically, because there are a lot of people, let's be honest, there are a lot of people even within our culture that are very, very married to holding on to the power of protest, to the power of change. They want that narrative to come from them. How do we get them to open up and accept these young people in as equal voices?
Well, I think it has to continue. They have forced them. They forced their hand. You don't get to ask them. They don't have to ask your permission. If you look at the youth march, these youth went out there. If you look at people like Tiffany Lawson, they're going out there. They're saying things that 20 years ago you would be like, nah, nobody's supposed to say that. They're not trying to be politically correct. They know what needs to be done, and they know how to fight against an enemy that is not politically correct. If you look at 45, he's not politically correct. And this is what the reality is. He is telling you what he's going to do, and he's doing it every time. So if you're trying to fight against him by being politically correct, you're going to lose because he don't have no strategy. His strategy is to win by any means necessary. So if you don't come with the same heart and the same energy and the same thrust that he has, then we're going to keep losing.
Blair, you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, definitely snaps first, though. I think that what's so powerful about, so I'm 24, and what's so powerful about folks who are 5 years younger than me is that they have this sense because they grew up in this really interesting time, or even younger. I think about folks like little Miss Flint, who's 10 years, she's 11 because she just had a birthday. Mari Kopany, who goes by Little Miss Flint on Twitter, and she straight up called out Elon Musk and was like, dude, you had, she didn't just say this, but I'm paraphrasing. She was like, dude, you have hella money. We have broken pipes. He's trying to posture like he cares so much about different communities and he's so politically involved, but she was like, literally, dude, you have stupid money and can help. And so now she's working directly with his team, and she's still getting slept on, even though she's literally 11 years old and is working on wealth redistribution, a level that we couldn't imagine happening in this era. And so looking throughout history, it was 15 and 16-year-olds who integrated Little Rock, Arkansas. It was 15 and 16-year-olds who were in the streets of Ferguson who were inspiring some of these other activists to get involved. And so I think for us to, as I'm getting older, I'm not getting older yet, but when that happens, for folks to just really think about what it was like when they were young and the struggles that they were going through, because it wasn't all just good times when you were young. Like my dad, for example, he doesn't talk about a lot of the struggles that he went through because they were painful to him. He didn't tell me he was a Black Panther until I was in jail calling him from Baton Rouge, Louisiana Parish Prison, because it was so painful for him and he wanted to move forward from that. And I think that's a lot of trauma that we have generationally, is that we've gone through struggles kind of as a collective community at all points of American history, and some of us don't want to bring that back up. A lot of our families live in Chicago, live in LA, live in New York because of terrorist violence happening on US soil. And so I think that when we look to youth who are fighting back, we can't think of it as something foreign or outside of the lines. It's something that isn't important to the Black struggle, and if we're not supporting them, they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, my son's point earlier, like there is no age requirement to change the world. Literally every single moment in our history has been led by young people. Even the very founding fathers were under 30 when they signed the Constitution. So to think that you don't have the ability, the tenacity, the energy, the education to actually move our communities, to shift cultures, to reframe how people think and look and view us as Black people, I think is setting your sights too short. And I think you all have the ability to do that. None of you should feel like you don't have what you need. And I think all of us on this stage is here to support you because we want to see you succeed. We want to see our communities be thriving. And I think oftentimes the movement require us to kind of play the oppression Olympics, like whose story is worse, who has the worst upbringing, the worst childhood. Every single person in this room, regardless if you have a traumatic incident in your life or you don't, your experience is valid, is important for all of us to hear it, to embrace it, because until we can't create solutions and movements and ideas without ensuring that the voices of all young people are included in that process. So don't feel like your voice isn't important because you don't have a traumatic incident that has happened in your childhood, or don't feel like because you had traumatic incidents and people in your family have been locked up that somehow that doesn't make you valid. And again, we're here to support you in that process because we got work to do, and there are people who are literally trying to kill us every single day. And until we decide to come together and put our pride, our energy, our Twitter followers aside to do the work, we're going to continue to see the same thing.
Right. Wow. I just want to say one thing. That was excellent. But I want to shout out Hazel Dukes, because when we talk about elders handing the torch down, I've watched her literally do that with Tamika Mallory, who I work with every day, and she supports her as a youth from a baby. She's molded her, and I see her do with a lot of young women and men, such as myself. I follow her lead, so it's being done. There's a lot of them.
Give it up for those who are willing to pass the torch.
Thank you
for
shouting them out.
Very important.
And wait, before you finish, to piggyback off of what you were saying, I do feel like, it's a lot of people that we do have that are scared to speak up. So we can't be scared to speak up. We definitely can't do that, because I feel like the more that we're scared, the more that they see that we're scared, and the more that they're going to keep on doing what they're doing to us because they know that we're scared. So we can't be scared. We have to speak up. We have to, get up, get out of here in these streets. Even if you're not in the streets, do something productive as far as like trying to start something as far as our Black women or our Black kids. The kids these days, it starts at home. Everything starts at home. They can't get out here and learn something if they're not learning it at home. So I just feel like, can't be scared to speak up about anything. I'm definitely not scared. I'm not going to be scared to speak about nothing.
Yeah.
Period.
For sure.
Just real quick, I got into organizing as a student at Florida A&M, the #1 HBCU in the world. I want to make sure. I want to make sure that that's widely understood.
Man, shout out to Southern University.
Hey. We don't need this division right now.
I'm saying, you brought it up.
Okay.
Don't make me get the human jukebox.
The baddest band in the, okay. But I want to say what Shakisha said, it really inspired something in me, because in school, I was a business student. I grew up poor in Chicago, and then my whole dream was to make money. And there was a length to where I would go, but I still wanted to protect just the illusion, just the chance, if I could touch the hem of that money, that I would be able to be accepted into this society. And I think as a student, speaking specifically to the students and the young people in the room, if you're a high schooler or you're on a college campus, you have a duty to let go of that. To let go of that. Because that is the carrot that they dangle in front of you to silence you. They say, just chill out right now. We're going to get you this job. Just chill out right now. You don't want to mess up this internship. You don't want to mess up this opportunity that you have. And don't get me wrong. I got my degree. I took a job. It was horrible. I did it for 4 years in pharmaceutical sales. I did it. Don't get me wrong. I understand that if you come from nothing and your whole family raised money and your church raised an offering for you to go to school and you come back with nothing, they're going to look at you sideways. I get that. I understand that. But what we have to understand is that possibly more than any time before us, we're in a time of life or death. And we are a part of a generation that is poised to live a life worse than the generations before us. One of the first generations to live a life that was worse than the ones before us. And so what is going to be required of us is going to be far more than what we've done before. And so as students, you all have a responsibility to shut down your college campus. Shut it down. It's happened before. Y'all need to stop it. Figure out what the demand is, figure out what the organization is, and to stop it. And to remember that you all have a duty because you're a part of the talented 10th. Most of your homies ain't going to school. Most of them not going to live. You made it to school, and you got your little suit, and you got your friends, and you got your big words now. But you have a responsibility to remember from whence you came. Not who you are, but from whom you are.
And the thing I want to say, too, is that for folks like me, so for my partner, he grew up in East St. Louis, and, all the homes in his neighborhood that he grew up around are vacant, and he's been dealing with police brutality in an all-black town that gets ignored by the state. But I didn't grow up that way. I grew up, being in Jack and Jill, my mom being in the Lynx, my dad being in the Boulay and in the Guardsmen, very bougie. But what I've noticed is that a lot of the young people who I grew up with have forgotten about the folks that we're a family. Just because you get a couple dollars for a couple generations doesn't mean that you can't continue to help.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm in the streets every day, because I have light skin privilege, we have generational wealth privilege, and if you're not in the streets every single day fighting for the people that look like you, what are you doing? If you're not living your life to change the world for the better, for what? And so I really encourage the folks who are used to the NAACP life, who came from this idea of black elitism, to not feel that their worth comes from who they're excluding, but for who you're also lifting up. You have to put a hand backward to pull somebody forward and make opportunities for other people. It can't just be you in the boardroom. It has to be your friends. You have to bring your community with you. There was one woman when I went to Howard Law School briefly and then dropped out, stay in school, kids. But there was one speaker there who said, if you're not bringing Pookie and them with you, why are you here? You can't be ashamed of your family. You can't be ashamed of your community. You have to literally bring everybody with you, because if everybody's not free, nobody is.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. But I also think that there is a real reality, particularly for those who are the first in their family to make it out. Right? For decades, we've been taught that the only way to make it out of our community is either through prison or death. All 10 of my older brothers have been incarcerated. And so I think the reality is oftentimes we're told to run and run fast. And if we come back, we don't know how to live those two lives, right? A life of a privilege of the fact that you've been educated, you've gotten access to resources that people in your family could not even dream about, while also recognizing that you aren't wealthy, like Jay-Z said, and to everyone in your community is wealthy. So I don't want to negate the real life experience that you're all dealing with and the struggle of trying to balance those two realities, because it's hard, right? It's hard trying to be black in a white world, in a white economy, while also still trying to remind your friends and your family that you haven't forgotten them and that you still are black, right? You aren't too good for them. You haven't learned those big words and now are too white. So I think the best advice that I can give you is to really be rooted in who you care about, the families that you left behind, and the work that is still required to bring everyone along, as Blair said, because our communities need us. And they set the standard to enable you to make it out in order for you to come back and do the work.
Yeah, without doubt. So we're a part of the stressors, part of the triggers of being a black American today is we're continuously inundated with images of violence against our people, with images of, obviously, we saw everything that happened to you. I just remember watching that and being so physically angry at that, that it was literally incapable. I was incapable of going on and doing what I was supposed to be doing. I had to actually take a break, you know, and those things, they rile you up and they make you want to be and react in a certain way. We're talking about nonviolence right here on this panel, and how we use these movements in a nonviolent way. Some of the protests that we've seen over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, some of them have been criticized by people outside of our culture and inside, fair enough, about having a violent tinge to them. Not that I agree, but it's a criticism that has to be brought up. So the question to you guys is, people who are on the ground, what does strategic and successful nonviolence look like? How do you shake society out of their current sort of comatose situation, meanwhile continuing to not raise your hand?
I gave this example during the workshop I was just giving, but I'll try to give the Cliff Notes version of it. But when I was on campus at LSU, the police department put out a bulletin that said, "Be on the lookout, black man in a hoodie, police on the scene." And Baton Rouge is a majority black city, as you know, and so it's in the cold, it's the winter. That's half of the city, you know. And I was so upset about that. I was just like so viscerally angry, like you were saying. I tried to get strategic, and I was reading March by John Lewis and thinking about what SNCC would do and what the Black Panthers would do. And they would do something. We forget how people say performance and protest in this kind of negative, derisive way, but I feel that performance and art and hip-hop and music and all of that and poetry can be used to change people's hearts and minds. And so what we did was gather community resources, pen an open letter to the LSU PD, and we had 25 black men in hoodies holding a sign of all, different shades, heights, everything, holding a sign that said he fit the description. And we made sure that every news camera in the city was there, every major newspaper was there, and we made it a performance. We made it kind of an art installation, and it was very dramatic because it was in 2015. We're hearing about all of these non-indictments. We're hearing about all of this violence against black folks. And so for us to just stand silently, folks knew kind of the context of the situation, but to see black men in hoodies in our diversity saying he fit the description, it changed the policy. The next time that they did a bulletin like that, it said, "Be on the lookout, 2 dark-complected males." It gave their height, their estimated weight, the clothes they were wearing, stuff that you actually need to catch a suspect. And before they told us that they couldn't have done that because it was a character limit on the text message alerts, but that was bullshit. And so we exposed that bullshit and we changed the policy, but it took us really disrupting and getting creative. And so I think that nonviolence isn't passive, it's strategic, it's creative, and ultimately, I do think that you need to have a storytelling element to it. You need a platform for this nonviolence to be projected because part of it is swaying public opinion. And when you can mix those all together, you'll have a victory. It might not be acknowledged by the system that you're fighting, but it's a victory nonetheless because there's change.
Yeah, my son.
I struggle with this all the time. Being a student of Harry Belafontaine, coming from Kenya Nonviolence, and having this conversation and watching innocent black unarmed people being killed every day, it's very hard for me to tell you to be nonviolent. I preach more anti-violence because I'm so against violence. But as a human being who wants to protect his life and wants his son to come home every day, and understanding that the enemy that we face has shown his willingness to kill us for nothing, it's very hard for me to not to protect your life. It's very hard. So there's a process. I need people to help me with this. I'm telling you this because I need to understand the complete process because we've been doing nonviolence. They have armies. They have people with guns who want to kill us. So what is the process for us? What is the process for us who want to be good people, who don't want to initiate any level of violence, who want to speak and want to do the good things, but we want to make it home at night? So that it's very hard for me. I understand that it's a lot. I understand that it's my goal in the beloved community. Nonviolence is a beautiful thing, but with the times that we live in now, it's very hard when you see that our enemy has no conscience.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think he said everything I
He did, man. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can't let a violent state dictate what violence is. I'll never let somebody who is inherently violent in every single way by every manner of measure of human development tell me what violence and violence is not. So I think we first have to interrogate what we believe to be violence, what is good and what is bad. What we witnessed from Shakisha at the Waffle House, a lot of people will say, oh, this is violence, right? But what we're witnessing is somebody struggling for their life. And so I agree. There's no disagreement in this. I think we also have to delve deeper and interrogate what is violence to us. When we see somebody trying to defend themselves from death, from somebody not acting irrationally, but with an abundance of ration. There is overwhelming bounty of empirical evidence that shows you that the people with the badges and the batons and the bullets are meant to do you harm. And that by complying with all of their wishes and orders, it still does not guarantee you life, liberty, and happiness. And so I think we are acting with an abundance of ration to defend ourselves. Furthermore, I think we have to interrogate why we are using nonviolence. I believe that strategic nonviolence is abundantly important for, as my son has already mentioned, they got bigger guns than you. And so whereas 50 years ago, our forefathers and mothers were using strategic nonviolence to develop and to, to unearth the empathy and the humanity of people who watched the conflict. They were hoping that by using nonviolence that the spectator would then be moved to action. Where we're not in that time anymore, I think we should reevaluate why we use nonviolence as well. And I think the reasons that have been used to chastise people today for using nonviolence are no longer relevant, yet and still using nonviolence is essential to our survival, because we may save one of us, we may save two of us, but the next day the headline is going to be 50 shot in Chicago, we need $55 million for more guns for the police. And so we've got to be wise, knowing that we're against a larger enemy. I would challenge folks to look at what people have done in Vietnam and in other places where they were underarmed and unarmed against a larger force. And no, I'm not advocating guerrilla warfare in the streets, but what I am saying is that we've got to use what is perceived as nonviolence at times when it is appropriate, and at other times it is far more appropriate to protect ourselves.
Yeah. I think the one thing that stood out for me, Phil, is survival, right? I think what's very different from now and 50 years ago, which is why I'm struggling, like my son, about like nonviolence. Like I started this work as a nonviolent activist, is this idea that there are people in the 50s and 60s who can be swayed by storytelling, who had a heart, who empathy when they saw people being beaten on the bridge and hosed down and dogs were sicked on them, like their stomachs turned. I don't know if that feeling is still the same when you see babies being snatched away from their parents at the borders, you see black kids being shot in the back, running away from police. Is that empathy still there? And so to your point around what is nonviolence, what is violence, I think we do need to reevaluate it, because we are dealing with a population of people who are literally also trying to survive. Data tells us that they will be the minority in 10 to 15 years. So there is a real deep fear that we the minorities are going to treat, when we are the majority, are going to treat them how they've been treating us. And so I think we need to be very strategic about how we operate, recognizing that they have an entire system, 5 branches of military on their side with drones who can take us out at any time. And I think we have to be really conscious about how we show up and show out, because we can keep saying nonviolence is to us only us just standing there and everyone else has been killed.
Shakisha, I want to talk to you specifically on this, because very rarely do I get to talk to somebody that was, in one of those videos that got us, right. Survived and got us so riled up. Has your worldview in terms of your approach to nonviolent activism or activism period been changed by the assault at the hands of the state that you were a victim of?
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell Tamika, Brittany, my son, I tell them all the time, like, my life has changed tremendously. Like, I could never go back to the old Shakisha ever again. So my situation has opened my eyes to see more beyond what I'm used to seeing. I'm used to just like the regular old things on a regular day, clothes, shoes, materialistic things. I'm not used to things of seeing, oh, well, 5 young black boys got killed this day, this day, this day, this day, this day. I'm not used to that. So once this situation happened to me, it opened my eyes up to see more bigger, in which I feel like, I don't want to say it, but if it seems like that's what it's going to take. It's going to take something happening to everyone, every black person, something, sort like I took. It's going to take that for everyone to open their eyes to see, we have to stand up for ourselves. We got to fight back, because it's just like people don't react how you want them to react, because they don't know their experience. So yeah, it has truly opened up my eyes. And to the question that you asked before, I would like to share like a strategic thing that we're doing as far as the Waffle House. Sure. So we're reenacting a skit of what happened to me. In the process of doing that, we have a couple. They are actually employees at the Waffle House, and they're a black couple. They're 2 young black couples that work at the Waffle House. What happened to them was a white man came in. He asked the guy to cook him an omelet 3 times. He wanted an extra egg and some more stuff in the omelet, which it wouldn't hold, so it kept falling. So the first time, he was like, nah, I don't want it, make it over. Okay, he made it over. Nah, I don't want it, make it over. Okay, I don't want it, make it over. Then next thing you know, he calls the man a nigger. Now, this is in a Waffle House now. He's a customer. He calls the guy a nigger, I come here and beat your ass and all this type of stuff. No police was called on him. He walked in, walked out, walked in, walked out, harassing them, cussing them out, trying to fight them. I beat you up, and I do this and I do that, but no police was called on them. So we're going to add their story in the reenactment to show you a black person's version and a white person's version, a black customer's version and a black employee's version. And to show you like the differences of what is going on at the Waffle House. Yeah. Like it's blank, clearly blank that they don't like black people.
How often do we see that? How often do we see some video with a white dude straight throwing with the police?
All the time.
Straight throwing with the police, tackling the police, or going at the police, kicking them, all kinds of stuff. And it couldn't be more transparent, sort of the things. Y'all about to make me mad.
That's right.
It couldn't be more transparent, like what's going on. But I do just want to say that your bravery and your stand is really appreciated.
Thank you.
I do want to say too, though, that I think it's hard for any of us to I know there's a way I feel about the nonviolence conversation, and I know there's a way that I'm going to not be on the FBI watch list because I'm a black Muslim activist. They already got the black identity extremists. I know about COINTELPRO. I know what would happen to me if I said what was in my heart when it came to nonviolence and the strategic ways we could defend ourselves in our communities. So I think that we look at public figures in the way that they are villainized, and then I also think about folks like Sister Bernice King, who really helped me understand that it's not about, in terms of my activism, this isn't for everybody or required of everybody, but I know that the words that I'm saying go beyond my physical body. I know that for a lot of speakers, they think about it similarly, but in terms of the message that we have to get across is more important than the physical form. Mm-hmm. And so I think that in terms of nonviolence, I'm going to just speak from the heart for a second, against my better judgment potentially, but I think that strategic property damage, like what we saw with the burning down of the CVS in Baltimore, I think that in terms of my moral compass, if you're not hurting people.
That's an interesting, I actually saw something that you had done, Philip, where you had actually, I was hoping to go there. Do you guys consider the destruction of property in protesting to be violence? Is that, you don't?
Those properties are insured, but when a black person is killed, you got medical bills. We don't have life insurance like they do on the building insurance. A building, really, it was just so wild to me when people were trying to defend the CVS more than they were defending Freddie Gray. What the absolute hell? Or people being in jail for 10, 20 years because they broke a cop car window, but y'all broke somebody's neck. Like, black people have been viewed as property, and that's why the police system exists, was to retrieve property, right? So we can protect black people as long as they're incarcerated or as long as they're property in terms of slavery. But as soon as black people are retaliating against the property that they've built themselves, it's a wrap. And so I don't view that as violence. If we aren't allowed to even have our lives, y'all aren't allowed to have property.
And I'll just
I'm gonna get me right now, y'all.
I'll just say it's time, place, and condition. Time, place, and condition. So you all, wherever you live, you all have a duty when you all are engaging in a struggle against this oppressive force to figure out what is the time, place, and condition. Do you all have the structure to be able to exert whatever force you all want to protect the people who are a part of it, and to make sure that when the story is told that y'all come out on top? And so there's a bunch of things that I could say about what I believe in, and I fully agree. But I think no matter what any of us say on the panel, you all have a responsibility to do a very wise analysis of time, place, and condition. If you are a general leading your people to destruction, you have no right to be a general. And so what? Oh, and no. Yeah. If you are a sergeant, but you all have a responsibility, because what we have to do is take ourselves seriously. And what is unfortunate is our opposition takes us more seriously than we do. And I'm a victim of this as well. I leave my door unlocked, I leave my car windows open. I do not treat myself as if I am involved in a struggle with a force that has been operating for millions or for hundreds and hundreds of years in this way. And I think all of us have a responsibility to doing that. And you all should make decisions based on time, place, conditions, that you all engage in an action or an activity that moves the dial on whatever campaign you want. Just doing something just because you saw it's a National Day of Action, or some people did a tweet and was like, we all gonna do this at the same time, everybody. If that don't fit your hood, don't do it. Because it will be very bad for you all to take part in a National Day of Action, which generally is corny as hell anyway, and then for the people on your block to be looking at you crazy, like, why you did that? You make us look stupid. You make you look stupid. I'm not joining your meeting because you look stupid and your shirts are whack. So you all time, place, condition. Time, place, condition.
I just want to touch on something real quick. What's also important, I think, is that we now have this thing of like traveling activists. And I also want us to be really,
world tour.
Right? But I think what's really important is to think about what you're doing to the folks locally. If the folks locally haven't blessed the action that you're doing, I don't care if you think it's the most radical thing in the world, it's bad for the community.
Word.
You can't make it harder on the people who live there just because you can fly out the next day. That's just what I wanted to say.
Now we're talking about everyone being involved, everyone being engaged, and everyone sort of putting their best foot forward to fight these things. This must be a tremendous source of stress. This must be a tremendous source of stress to you guys in your lives, because every single day you're putting your thumbprint on the world's problems. Just for everyone on the panel, how do you prioritize your mental and physical self-care? How do you make sure that your mind is free of those cobwebs that kind of diving into this stuff on a daily basis kind of brings you? I want to hear from you first, because you I could see your reaction to that. So how do you do it?
I think it would be cute and nice of me to say, well, I meditate and I do yoga. But to be absolutely honest, it is a struggle. Every single day, it is a struggle. I mean, mentally, physically, emotionally. And I'm one of those people, I am an empath. Thank you, sis. And every time I see something on the news, I physically feel it. So I have to stop watching the news as much as I used to. And that has helped with my sanity, but in all reality, it is a constant battle for me to realize that I have to take care of myself, that I have to watch what I eat, watch what I watch, people I keep around me. And so the best piece of advice that I would give is cultivate your tribe. Who are the people who genuinely care about you, that love you, that want to make sure that you get home safe? And surround yourself with those people, because when things get hard, you need them to remind you of how important you are. You need those people to have your back, to show it with you, to bail you out of jail if you got locked up in a protest. And so for me, that's how I semi-stay sane, but you know, I'm a work in progress.
Real quick, because I think that we're actually running out of time. So I wanted to get that question out there, but I want to just kind of get, you know, we were supposed to have like a Twitter Q&A thing to get, you know, spicy and probably inappropriate comments and questions from Twitter. But, you know, things were just going so well, I'll let y'all roll, man. Y'all got a lot to say. So I want to get some closing remarks from the panel, just basically on sort of the entire thing that we've been discussing, empowering youth in a nonviolent way. Y'all don't seem to be the biggest fans of nonviolence, but we're going to move right past that. Just some closing remarks, man. Like, what do you guys see this whole thing as sort of meaning to you, and what would you like to see happen in the short and long-term future? Oh, two people have a question. Sure, let's get to their questions. Yeah, give her a mic.
So I have a question about some of the adultism that's going on, and I know NAACP is working really hard to represent the youth voice, but I wanted to bring to light some of the experiences that us as adults, even though we're all required to be called youth, some of us as adults are experiencing. And I know that the point of, and the theme of our workshop and our whole conference is to vote. And so in what ways would you guys kind of actively work towards getting that voice? Because I know when I was in my regional meeting, I wasn't able to vote as a youth. And so I just wanted to kind of shed light to that and see what ways you guys would recommend that we bring light to that concern.
I actually just got somebody registered for voting like yesterday. Got couples registered to voting. What we're doing as far as like trying to push the votes, we're canvassing the areas. So we're out on feet, you know, making sure that our young black people are registered to vote. So, you know, we do have those that say, well, we don't vote because it don't make a difference. It don't do nothing. But it does. It really does. So when we was out canvassing the other day, it was this couple. They were black. They were the same way. No, we don't vote. We're not on that. That's not us. It doesn't affect us, which it really does. So, you know, we had to break it down to them, let them know, hey, you finna register to vote today. So they registered.
I'm actually confused. Sister, where's the young sister at? Right there? Yeah, like were you talking about voting in terms of in the
Well,
oh, oh, okay. So I guess the concern is more about your voice being heard here at the conference. Okay.
I think that what's really important to note is that you asked us how you bring light to that issue, but you just said that in front of like.
That's how you do it. I was about to say.
You already. I think that yes. Snaps for this young person. I think that as young people, like, because I'm still young, right? But I think as young people, what I felt like I needed in college was somebody to be like, am I going on the right path? Because sometimes it feels like we're feeling in the dark. But you already know what you're doing. Just continue to speak up. You nod in your head. You know what you're doing. Yeah. Like, just continue to speak up and really occupy the space. You demanded that you ask the question. You raised the issue. And I hope that they'll, the NAACP establishment, if they're asking us to vote in the political system, that they'll cultivate that youth agency and help the young people vote if they're members as well.
Absolutely. I'll make sure you guys. We're gonna take two more questions because we really are running out of time. Go for it.
Hello. Hey, over here. So I wanted to ask you guys about the capitalism that.
Wait, what's your name, sister?
Yeah, sister. Tell us your name.
My name is Channing.
So we'll do Channing.
Hey, do me a favor, sister. Come up here. We're gonna take these two questions and then that's it because we really are running out of time.
And then you can add us on Twitter if you'd like.
Sure. And y'all try to be, get concise with the questions and stuff like that. No SoundCloud links.
First of all, thank you all for coming out here tonight to speak to us and share your wisdom with us. My name is Roland, at Clark Atlanta University, and I had a comment first about like the nonviolence. I feel like the issue between nonviolence and violent protests isn't necessarily whether it's violent or not-violent, but the only way we get results is whether or not we present ourselves as vulnerable. Where you look at Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Malcolm X, he didn't have a problem with nonviolent protests. His problem was when we come as nonviolent, we seem docile. And so they look at us like they can scream all they want, they can shout all they want, but that's all they're gonna do. And so that's where you get by any means necessary from. And that's where you get Huey Newton, where he militarized his people. He gave them guns, he gave them protections, and so he helped them in a sense. While we're protesting, you see us, but we're calm now. But if you continue to push, who's to say we are to stay calm? And that is where we need to draw the line between violent and nonviolent, where it is calm, but also they need to see that if they continue to push it, will not stay calm. And also my question was, earlier you said this government wasn't made for us. So in a sense, what form of government would be good for us? How would the power matriculate? What laws should be in place? How will we decide who makes the laws? Cool. And how do we decide how we enforce the laws? Because clearly police ain't working.
Okay, real quick. Well, wait, no, we're gonna get an answer to that one, then we're gonna let this.
Well, she was started talking about capitalism. I feel like they may the questions
okay.
may link.
They do go hand in hand. So the U.S. is known for its capitalist system. That's, quote, unquote, what makes us one of the best countries in the world. So if you don't have capitalism, what do you have in its place? And if you choose a more socialist system, will it be really better depending on, like he said, who makes the laws and who decides where the money is distributed and how it's distributed?
Quickly, let's try to merge those two.
Both of those are huge questions. I'm here until tomorrow. I'd love to talk to y'all more and more. So really quickly, go to dreamdefenders.org, and this is not a shameless plug. On there, we have our version of what Florida could look like if we started to move forward with a new economic and democratic system. It's called the Freedom Papers. So if you go on there on dreamdefenders.org, you'll find that. What is included in there is principally that we will have a government that values its people before profit. It is people before profit. So we can talk longer about the many nuances of socialism and capitalism, but what I would like to offer in the little bit of time that we have is that fundamentally what it means is that our government, which is democratically elected by each and every person in here, puts people before profit. And what that means in practice is that the decisions that they make about our food, our shelter, our clothing, our education, our health care, our transportation, our water, the entirety of our society, the decisions, the metric for what makes a good decision and what dictates a bad decision are people-centered outcomes and not what saves money or makes money. Right now, we live in a world that says if it don't make money, it don't make sense. Y'all all know the end of it. Yeah. That is how our world is run. If it does not make money, it does not make sense. What we're saying is if it is not people before profit, then it is fundamentally going to kill us. And that is the government that we're trying to see. So go to dreamdefenders.org. I guess this is my closing as well. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Real quick, 30 seconds from everybody, just some closing remarks.
Well, for me, I want to slightly answer that a little bit. What I want to say is that when I say that this government wasn't built for us, it was built based on how much you had. It was built based on land. It was built based on what white people had in this country, and they made that a value. It was not structured around the attributes and the possessions of black people, so we were never meant to flourish in this system. So how do we restructure it is we start to build from the bottom. We got to change the mentality as we trying to get out the hood to go where they at. Instead, we got to rebuild the hoods, the people that look like us, and then start to build from there. You don't leave the projects because you got thousands of people in the projects that don't know nothing. So if you get something and you bring it back and you turn that project into your home, like they gentrify our communities, they move them in there because they understand the value. If we start understanding our own value and let people, our youth, see us professionally, and then they can say, okay, I want to be like you. What do you do? See, if their only vision of success is somebody who's selling drugs and killing, then that's what they want to try to acquire to be. So when we start building our communities back piece by piece and not saying I want to leave our communities because I got something, instead I'm going to bring something back to the community and make it into something, then that's when we can start building a government and a structure that fits us.
Jameer?
What I will say is that I think over the last 5 years, being an activist has become very sexy, like a very celebrity-ish. And if you are doing it for the clicks, the likes, the retweets, you ain't ready to put your body on the line for justice. And I really think that as we continue to do this work, we need to be surrounded by people who are willing to put their body on the line for justice, not just for ourselves, but for our community, because otherwise they're going to continue to win. They're going to continue to dangle a really cute carrot in front of us, and some of us will take it. But until we cultivate our own idea of what liberation, what freedom, what equity looks like, we're going to continue to see the same, I'm trying not to cuss, we're going to continue to see the same stuff over and over again. And so I got the opportunity to sit with you all at my workshop, and so I'm ready to retire because I feel like you got the tools, you're ready to do the work. Just let me know how I can be of assistance. Thank you.
Blair?
I'm just going to say that in terms of like being authentically there for your community, always think about your intentions. Always think about why you're speaking up. Are you speaking up because you want to be the one that's heard, or are you speaking up because you're adding something of value? But that being said, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to take care of yourself. Be humble in the work that you're doing, but also be confident and know that you're fabulous. Know that you have the power to make change, and know that you should be happy. You should listen to Cardi B and like wild out a little bit. Like you don't have to always be in the struggle. Don't get burnt out. Like enjoy yourself. Buy the Jordans and go to the protest. Like you don't have to. It's not either or. You know what I mean? It's both and. And so I would just say that don't wait for somebody else to give you the green light or the credentials to make something happen. Make it happen yourself, because you have the power to do that. And like Jamira said, I'm happy to be a resource. I mentor a lot of young folks who are like the same age as me too, and folks who are older as well. Like if I can help build and connect, or if you're looking for resources or a platform, I have a platform, I'm happy to share it. So we're really here for you.
Shisha?
I would like to say what you said. You know, don't be scared to speak out. Don't be scared to be who you are. You know, just do what you feel like is the right thing to do. And it's, yes, ma'am, stay out ASS at the Waffle House. Thank you. Yes, stay at the Waffle House.
No justice, no profit.
No justice, no profit.
Bacon, eggs,
no
eggs,
eggs, bacon, or sausage.
I was all
No
day
justice,
long.
no profit. No bacon, eggs, and no sausage. No justice, no profit. No bacon, eggs, and no sausage.
All right. For me, the thing that resonates with me the most, and obviously, is what we said. There are a lot of people out there that are celebrities and they're luminaries, and you should always listen to anyone who's advocating for you. But remember, those people only exist to empower these people. Those people who have huge platforms, they gotta go do photo shoots, they gotta do magazine shoots, they gotta record albums, they gotta do all of that stuff. So no matter what your heroes are, remember, there are people that are doing the heavy lifting in these societies and these communities every single day. You are them. And so because you're them, remember, you guys are the ones that need to be nourished and fed and empowered. And hold these people's feet to the flames to do that, because that's their only function, really. All right, give it up for the panel, everybody. We ran late. We got to get off this stage.